Hopefully I will answer most or many of them along the way. So this is the Keller family that you see here, and we'll learn more about them here in just a little bit. Iceland, you can see that little red dot up there. You can see how far north it is, and it's out in the middle of the ocean, and it's an island to itself. It's a volcanic island. You might think it would be very cold there. Here is a little data. First of all, the daylight. You can see it goes down to 4 hours of daylight on December 21st and up to 21 hours of daylight on June 21st. So big kind of back and forth on that. But you will see the high temperatures, and then interestingly, the average low temperature in the winter is about 28 degrees, warmer than you might think. You might think I did that it would be, sub-zero in the wintertime. It's about the same as Augusta County, Virginia in the wintertime. Why? Because there is a North Atlantic current. There is the Gulf Stream that brings warm ocean water to its shores, and so it moderates the temperature there a great deal. And so it's not as severe of climate in the winter as you might think. Beauty, unimaginable beauty everywhere you turn. It's just unbelievable. God's creation is just mind-blowing. Waterfalls everywhere you turn, and this will obviously lend itself to, as we talk about the people of Iceland, how they can ignore this God, this Creator God, amidst such absolute incredible beauty. This picture right here is a rainbow, and in the back, you can't tell, but it's actually the glacier that's in the background there. That's in Iceland. We probably saw a dozen rainbows during our time there. The weather is very odd. It will rain for 15 minutes, and the sun will come out, and it'll like sprinkle, spit, and rain for 15 minutes. So it's very cloudy, but then the sun will peek through, and you got rainbows everywhere. So it's just unbelievable and incredible beauty everywhere there. So a little bit of history about Iceland. Martin Luther, and the national church in Iceland is the Lutheran Church. So we can ask, okay, well, what did Martin Luther have to do with that? Martin Luther actually never visited Iceland, but his books and ideas began reaching Iceland in the 1530s, and then this man, that I won't try to pronounce his name, translated the New Testament into Icelandic directly from Luther's German Bible. And this was the first book printed in Icelandic, making Luther's ideas central to the spiritual life there. In the 15 to 1700s, essentially a state-controlled church under the Danish crown, and they followed traditional Lutheran orthodoxy and a strong emphasis on catechisms, hymnody, biblical preaching. Church was confessional, strict in morals, doctrinally close to Lutherans' teachings at that time. The Enlightenment came in the 1800s. Enlightenment and rationalism began to affect theology across Europe, including Iceland. The authority of Scripture began to be questioned. Preaching became more moralistic and less focused on sin and grace, and the historical critical methods began to shape biblical studies. Then, obviously, we continue to become more liberal in time in the 1900s to present. In the 1900s, the Icelandic Lutheran Church started to embrace theological liberalism more openly. The emphasis moved from confessional Lutheranism to cultural national identity, and many clergy during this time began to adopt liberal theology. In the late 20th century, major social reforms were accepted by the church. Women were ordained as pastors first in 1974, and the increasing acceptance of modern moral views on sexuality. In 2010, same-sex marriage was legalized in Iceland, and the National Lutheran Church permits same-sex marriages in its churches. So you can see kind of the slow decline there over the decades and centuries. Today, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Iceland is one of the most progressive Lutheran bodies in the world. Most Icelanders are members of this state church. They're at birth. Most Icelanders are baptized and then later confirmed, but it's purely a cultural ritual. It has absolutely no spiritual meaning to them whatsoever. It's purely tradition. Church attendance is very low, and cultural ties to the church are waning. So even what was considered cultural in the church sense, that's even waning and going away. So the Iceland population is only about 404,000 people for the whole country, and 65% of those people live in Reykjavik. In the whole country, it is estimated there's only 500 born-again believers, which is about 1/4% of the total population. Very, very small. Gospel preaching churches, Dale Keller kind of told me maybe 3. A couple of those are like maybe Pentecostal churches where we would differ for them greatly, but that somebody could potentially hear the gospel in those environments. But churches that only elect male officers, which obviously is the church we're going to talk about, there's only one of those. They're the only church that would do expositional preaching, those kind of things like that. So really, it's very, very bleak there as far as the availability of gospel preaching. There is Reykjavik, Iceland. That's where we flew into, and we spent most of our time there. You can see there it's on the ocean, and that's where most of the people, as I said a minute ago, 65% of the folks live right there. This is a Lutheran church, which is right in the center of the town of Reykjavik, big, tall building that is now a museum. So it's basically a tourist attraction is all that it is. Sam was asking me if they do any services there, and I asked Dale that. He said no, he doesn't think anything happens there as far as a regular service, which obviously it would be false teaching anyway, but it's really just a tourist attraction there in the city. Adjoining that church, from the church, this street leads up to the church right here. And you can see the colors there painted on the street. And the annual Gay Pride Parade is the largest gathering in Iceland annually. And again, this street leads right up to the front of that church that I was just showing you. So we see this wide acceptance of this in Iceland. The Iceland family. The family unit there is broken. Marriage is not valued. Sexual promiscuity is prevalent. Siblings often have different mothers and fathers. 67% of kids are born out of wedlock. And unfortunately, you won't see any kids with Down syndrome in Iceland. It's very rare to see those kind of things in Iceland because babies with defects are aborted. All right, Iceland is the sad, happy people. Iceland tops the list for antidepressant consumption per capita and ranked as the world's 3rd happiest nation, which Dale says that's what happens when you get to fill out your own paperwork. you get to say both things. But so it's a very somber, very cold, stark people. Whereas here, people might give the little smiles or the waves. Here it's very, people don't look up, they don't look at you, you go by, or even if you stop like the car or whatever, right, and to let people go across the street. Here you might say, thank you. There they don't look, they don't even pick their head up. So while 85% of inhabitants are supposedly Christians, Iceland considered the 6th most atheistic nation in the world, dubbed the most godless country in Europe in 2016. So this man right here is Gunnar Gunnarsson. He is the founding pastor of the church that we'll talk about here shortly. He was an Iceland native, and he did a documentary as we continue to kind of uncover the godlessness there. He did a documentary, I think it was in 2016 or 2017, called Christian by Default, about the country of Iceland, and he did some interviews. And I'm going to now share and play this for you, a little excerpt from this for about 5 minutes here. And what he's going to be doing, you'll hear first this man talking about how the Icelandic people view their Christianity, but then he's going to go to the street and you're going to hear some interviews of people on the street being asked about Christianity, Jesus, and the Bible.
And a lot of churches get started and then end up not living for very long, because I don't think it's ingrained in our culture to be part of a church which the members themselves support and drive. So there is this attempt to strip away the religious bit and hold on to the ethical bit. So you could say that generally speaking, what people acknowledge are good ethics, not necessarily what they live out, what people acknowledge are good ethics and and the right way to treat people and behave is based on Christian values, but it's not necessarily that people are actually believers.
It comes down to the förmingar, the confirmation. And it seems to me that a lot of people are told in school basically that they are Christian. And they have a piece of paper that says they're Christian. And that's enough. And so they don't really need to take that any further because the priest told them at the förmingar that they are Christian. They have to do it at school and they get a piece of paper. I've actually had somebody say, I don't need to know about Jesus, I have a piece of paper.
Would you consider yourself to be a Christian?
No, not really. Actually, I am baptized into the National Church, but I don't consider myself really Christian anymore.
No, not anymore. No, I don't think so. I'm not. I'm registered in the National Church, but I wouldn't consider myself a Christian.
Would you consider yourselves to be Christians?
No.
No. I would consider myself as an atheist.
Would you consider yourself to be a Christian?
No, not at all. No. Like I like the.
Had to mute it for a second.
Yourself to be a Christian?
No, I don't.
Are you registered in the state church?
No, I'm not. I signed out right after the confirmation.
Right after you got the presents.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourselves to be Christians?
Yes.
Yes.
You registered to the state church?
Yes, but I'm gonna unregister. Because I'm gonna pay money to the church.
Are you registered in the state church?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not Christian?
Yes. I'm Christian, but not the... I'm Christian? Yes, I'm Christian, but I'm not exactly like, Christian.
No, I will not consider myself to be a Christian.
Are you registered in the state church?
Yes. Yes, in fact I am.
Do you think there are a lot of people like you, like kind of not Christian?
Yeah, pretty much, because, it's like, when you're born, it's like automatically happens, for Iceland.
I'm basically against all religion. I think religion is the cause of war in the world. I think if there was no religion, there wouldn't be any wars. People could be more connected without violence and religious dispute. And that's what I think of religion.
What do you feel about the Bible? Do you feel like it's the Word of God?
No. Everybody knows it's exaggerated to the max.
It's an excellent form of fiction. I watch, personally I watch a lot of stand-up, and I think what Pat Nelson said was true. It's, although I haven't read it all, I believe it could be a great read. Like, it's got monsters, it's got adventure.
We have, all these amazing people now who can do tricks and stuff like that. And maybe he was just like that guy in his own time. So yeah, I don't believe he could be real. But in fact, I don't know exactly. But yeah, sure, he could have been real. Why not? Jesus Christ is like a Harry Potter. To me, he's a philosopher, a good philosopher.
What about Jesus? Do you think he was a real person? This guy?
I'm not sure. Maybe it was real and something is about him, but I think it was more like a group of people that wanted to make rules or guidelines for the humanity to follow.
I definitely don't think he was neither God nor a son of God. I mean, literally a son of God. So that's the reason I don't really consider myself a Christian.
It's very open to interpretation, and it was like such a long time ago. You can't really trust any real source. You know, it could all be fabricated.
Yeah, it's basically a belief as well.
Yeah.
Like, do you believe in Jesus, that he was a real man? That's just like, do you believe in the Bible?
But he was really clever. Yes, like a feminist and stuff. Yeah, really ahead of his time. Yes. But son of God.
A man? Just a man, just a guy. I don't know.
If he was real, it'd be really cool, you know, spreading this wise message of, you know, hippy dippy cool, be cool, yeah, all right, cool guy. But I don't know, devote a book solely to that guy. That'd be a pretty great guy.
So up into this.
So that gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of what the colors are up against. It's completely rejecting this God, somebody who they think does tricks. Very sad, very sad. So where is the light in Iceland? This is the church. This is Lofstafan Baptista Kirkja. The Kirkja is the church. Obviously, you can see that. Currently, this is the building that they're meeting in. They are renting this church. It's a very nice building. It's actually bigger than it looks. They're currently renting it. They're trying to buy it. It was previously owned by another church, and they are letting them use it, but for some reason, it's like some kind of board that owns it, and they won't relinquish the ownership of it. So right now, they're meeting there. That's another shot of it. That's the parking lot. Nice big lot. Nice big parking lot there. This is the morning we were about to walk in there for the Lord's Day. Again, this is Gunnar Gunnarsson. He's the founding pastor. He's an Iceland native. He is married. He grew up there in a church cult. His dad was actually a pastor who Dale said if Benny Hinn and Joel Osteen had a baby, that was his father. Yeah, that was how he grew up. And he actually went to this Bible training in Alabama for 3 years before he was converted, went back home, was serving with his father. I won't go into the details, but he came to faith in 2010. He basically started listening online and listening to some podcasts, Reform podcasts, began to hear the truth, and then he came to faith after that in 2010. Obviously left his father there in that ministry, quickly growing a passion to start a church there in Iceland. So this church is about 12 years old. So you see he was converted in 2010. The church began in 2013. It started in the Icelandic language. That's where the church started, obviously. Icelandic people, Icelandic language. But here's the unique about this church is that there's a lot of internationals in Iceland, and obviously if you're an international seeking biblical teaching and preaching, there's only one place to go. And so they were flocking in there, and he was basically doing English translations for those people at first. But eventually he switched to English. English is prevalent in Iceland. Almost everybody speaks it everywhere you go. And even the Icelanders who were part of the church were in favor of switching it to English. Now, there's baggage attached to that with trying to reach new Icelanders, but this is what they did. The membership right now is about 50 people. 40% of the membership is Icelandic. Regular attendance in the church is about I meant to put 80 to 90, 80 to 90. But the interesting thing is, you go into this church, you want to talk about diversity. There's about 15 nations represented in the folks that attend that church, people from all over the world coming into this one church. What about Icelanders? I'll talk more about this here shortly, because there is a stigma associated with having the church in English, and there is a barrier there, so there are things potentially coming to address this. But right now, there is Icelandic presence in the church, and like I said, the people there who are Christians and are natives, obviously they see unity in Christ. They're like, we don't care what the language is, as long as we can understand it. We just want good biblical teaching. So this is Elliot Jones. This man is the other pastor there at the church. He's actually from America, from Oregon. His wife was an Iceland native, and he plans to move to, I'm not going to try to say it, Akureyri in the northern Iceland next to summer. And right here I've got a picture of this. So you can see Reykjavik, which is where the main church is, and he's going to be moving up here to this town to start a church, and I believe plans to have that church in Icelandic and preach and teach in Icelandic there. So that is on the horizon. You might think that that's out in the wilderness at a rough place, but this is the place that he's moving to. It is remote, but it's a little port town there. And next summer, the plan is for him and his wife to move up there and begin a church plant. This is inside of the church that obviously we attended there in Reykjavik. This is kind of like one half, so I took this picture standing up here over here. So that's about half the seats. I think it would seat about 140, 150 people. Very nice building. They have one service at 11 a.m. on Sundays. That's the only service that they have at this time. That's Dale Keller up there. And then that was Luke. They actually gave Luke a minute to come up during the morning. They kind of have a prayer request time that they integrate into their worship service. And so Luke went up there and spoke for a couple of minutes, as well as they let him come on Monday night for he basically gave his full Costa Rica presentation on Monday night there at the church, but this was there on Sunday morning. And then after the 11 o'clock service, every week they have a fellowship meal there, so that's a picture of that. And Luke over there was huddled up with the Spanish-speaking folks, as you might imagine. So that was the fellowship meal that followed. I got a library in there. Like I said, nice building. So this is Dale. This is the Kellers. Dale, Linnea, Cedar. I think their ages are 7, 5, 3, and 2. I think I got that right. Cedar and Zion there. Avonlea, they basically call her Avi, is what we called her during our time there in the middle, sitting on Dale's lap. And then Aya is there on the far right. And it's kind of a funny story. Her given name was Isla, but when they got to Iceland, they realized that Isla in Iceland meant throw up. And so they changed what they call her to. They call her Aya. So that's what they call her. Yeah, very very sweet kids. We had a great time with the kids. Really great time. That was a day we went for a walk with the Kellers and sat down. There was a little park right there. So Dale and Linnea have been married since 2017. They both studied at Reformed Baptist Seminary in Coconut Creek, Florida, and Dale completed his Master's of Theological Studies in 2019. They always, actually his wife was the one that really, she said on their second date, Linnea told him, I want to serve overseas missions. So she was a little bit of the impetus, but obviously Lord gave him the heart for serving internationally, and so they began to look for an opportunity. They partnered with a church planting network called the Iceland Project, which is actually headquartered in Dumfries, Virginia, in Northern Virginia. And they basically are set up to try to reach the people of Iceland. So they began to partner with this organization as they were considering going to Iceland. They're sent out. They're sending churches 5 Points Community Church in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Of course, they're members of the church there in Reykjavik now. Dale serves right now on the pastoral staff. Linnea participates and helps and leads both women's and children's ministries. And they moved to Iceland last year in May, so they've been there about 15 months. And EBC is the first supporting church to visit them, and they were super encouraged and very, very, very thankful for our visit. So it was really a sweet time with them. So Dale was nominated shortly after, or a few months in, nominated by the congregation for elder. They have a similar process that we do here. Elders are nominated, typically recommended by the congregation. He is in the elder affirmation process now, and there's going to be a vote in November, and believe it or not, there's 3 other men that are also in that process, and I think I've got a picture, yeah. So the 3 other men, and again, we've got 1 Colombian and 2 Nigerians that are in this elder consideration. So in November, there will be a vote to affirm these men. Hopefully that will happen, and so we see the Lord's work there in bringing leaders into the church, elders into the church. The ministries, you've got a couple things going on there. There's a weekly Bible study, and they kind of set up the Bible studies by language to make it a little bit easier, because there was a large Spanish component of folks there. So they've got one at the Keller's home weekly in English, Gunnar's home in Icelandic, and then there's one at another home that's done in Spanish. And then they have a weekly Bible study at Iceland University. So weekly they go over there and do a Bible study and try to develop relationships with those folks. Linnea attempts to build relationships, but often she is rejected or shunned when she talks about Christ. So she obviously is staying home with the kids, but more about that in a minute. She's trying to find, most women work in the workplace, but some do stay home or stay home for some time. So she tries to develop, and really the way that they're trying to do evangelism is primarily through relationship building, because obviously they don't speak the language yet. They're working on that, but that's really a barrier to get past. The Icelandic people are very protective of kind of the culture, and are like, okay, you're not from here, and so kind of immediately a wall goes up. But she said she starts to get into conversations. She'll hang out with maybe a young mom for a while, but then as soon as she gets into the subject of religion or Christianity, she said they will ghost you so fast. She said literally, like you will walk by them the next day and they won't even look at you. They'll just completely ignore you. So very difficult to penetrate what we saw, that you saw a little bit earlier with those street interviews. So the language is a challenge. In language level of difficulty, world languages, Icelandic is considered a level 3 of 4. Kind of your tonal languages would be the highest level, but the Icelandic language does have an alphabet, which mimics our alphabet some with a few changes. But Dale has now finished level 2 of 6 in language studies. So there are 6 levels there and they take those classes at Iceland University. So him and Linnea both are doing that. It's difficult for them to practice because most people speak English. So as soon as they see you struggling a little bit to speak Icelandic, they switch over to English, and they literally said they won't switch back. They just go to English. And so it's been real tough. I asked Dale what his level 2 capabilities could get him in a conversation, and he said, I can get pretty far into a kind of a small talk conversation, but obviously my accent, I'm sure he said, is terrible, and then at some point I can no longer carry on the conversation. So, but that's, they've been there 15 months, so they started their studies obviously before they went to Iceland, but it's a difficult language to learn and to master. So let's see what time it is here. Oh, I got it. Okay. Well, let me see. I'll keep going. All right. This is an interesting fact that I couldn't pass up. In the family, this is according to the language. This is kind of associated with the language. There's no last names carried on in Iceland. So my father's name was James. My father's name was James McGonigal. The way they do last names is my last name would have become in Iceland Greg Jameson. So they take your father's first name and throw son on the end. And if you're a daughter, so in my case, Micah back here, his last name would become, he'd become Micah Gregson, and Katie would become Katie Gregdaughter. That's how they do last names in Iceland. They take the father's first name and throw either son or daughter, and that's why you saw Gunnar, if you notice that, his last name was Gunnarsson. So he had the same first name as his father. So he was basically Gunnar Jr., so he was Gunnar Gunnarsson, because his father's name was Gunnar. So I thought that was very crazy, strange. But yeah, so they said that actually, this unfortunately lends itself to the family breakdown because there's no connection of lineage whatsoever to last names. It's just all over the place. It's really crazy. So anyway, I just threw that on there as kind of a fact, and I thought it was very interesting. Schools. Homeschooling is illegal. Private schools are rare. The Keller children, obviously they can't homeschool them legally and stay there. So this is one of the things that you begin to understand with overseas missions, where we live here in we have lots of freedom here, and then when you go to other places where you're trying to share the gospel, it becomes more difficult. But the Keller children attend the only non-state school near them. It's actually a Seventh-day Adventist school that instructs in Icelandic. So that's where they're sending their kids. They say that there's very little religious teaching in the school, but that's where they're sending them, and obviously all the instruction is in Icelandic. So these kids are getting pushed into the pool with Icelandic language, and that's how they're navigating that. So tough providence, but that is what they are doing. The economy. So one of the challenges that's associated with Iceland is it's incredibly, incredibly expensive. So what I've got here, I just did this, and I'm sure it's not perfect, but to give you an idea of how expensive it is there to live, the first thing you need to know is that what people make in Iceland is about the same as what they make here. Okay, so basically, if you transplanted Iceland and were making the same amount as you're making here, that's the buying power that you would have here. But let me see if I can show you this. So I'm going to, at the average income for two with two kids, I'm just using a number, both working $100,000 in the United States, income tax. You guys know this, 0 to 15%, and you throw in your Social Security tax. Your take-home pay is going to be about $89,000. Sales tax, you're going to pay that on everything you buy, and then you got to buy health care. In Iceland, the average income is the same, and again, it's the same amount. It's not, you think, well, okay, well, they're making $200,000 over there. They're not. So everything I've done here is converted to US dollar equivalent, okay? Income tax is 25%. And there's no way around it. You're paying 25% income tax. Then on top of that, there's another municipal tax that you have to pay on every dollar that you earn of 14%. So you're pushing 40% tax. And so your take home, and I even threw in, they have kid credit. So if you have two kids, they give you a little bit of money back. You're taking home $72,000 in Iceland. On top of that, here we pay 5.5% sales tax. On top of that, the money that you take home, every time you buy something, food is taxed at 10%, everything else is taxed at 24%. So literally everything that we bought over there was double. You know, if a $15 meal here is $30, you just automatically kind of double what it would cost the United States. But keep in mind, they're dealing with the same buying power here as we are, but they're living in this environment. Now, they do get free health care. You can see they're taxing. They do get free health care. The health care is not, as you know, in socialistic countries, They waved the flag, but the Keller said, you can get emergency care there, but if you have to do anything that's not emergency, they needed glasses. Zion, you probably saw his glasses. He had an issue with his eyes. 11 months for an appointment. So basically, you have to know somebody. And that's what they did. They called a friend of a friend who knew a friend of a friend who called an Icelandic doctor, and they got him in next week, the following week. But if you have any kind of chronic health care, or if you have to see like a specialist, you know, for any chronic health care, it's months and months and months between appointments. And then I put education, obviously, here. Scholarships and things, but education, we have to pay for education. They do have free college in Iceland. So basically, Icelandic University is free to residents. And actually, it's free to Dale and Nia, too. So even internationals that come in there go to college for free. A couple more. Average single-family home here, $400,000. And for here, 1,000 square foot apartment, I threw a number on it. I'd say about $1,200 a month. Gas per gallon here is $3 a gallon. In Iceland, same U.S. dollars, average single-family home is $1 million there. That's the average single-family home. The Keller apartment is 1,000 square feet, and they pay $3,000 a month for it. That's what I'm saying. You just double everything. So they got a 1,000 square foot apartment. It's on the second floor of this huge monster complex. And you can actually buy those apartments. You know, obviously you're not buying the structure, but you're basically buying the apartment. And for them to do that, it would cost them $600,000 to buy their 1,000 square foot apartment. They got 3 teeny tiny little bedrooms in there. And wait for it, a gallon of gas there, $10 a gallon. So you can imagine electric vehicles are pretty popular there, as you might imagine. So yeah, it's just that this is a great, incredible challenge. And obviously the Kellers had to raise, as you can probably imagine, a lot of support dollars, knowing that, you know, huge quantities of it would dissipate to try to live over there. And obviously Linnea is not working outside the home, so it's single income. This is a shot of the Dale and Luke and I. We did a, if you guys saw, we're on the feed there. Wednesday morning, we kind of walked around Reykjavik at different places around the city and just did kind of a prayer walk, praying for specific things as we walked around the city. And I think this is getting close to the end. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take questions now. 40 minutes. I think I got a couple minutes. Yes, sir.
How accessible is the church to Reykjavik? The pictures made it look like you're kind of out on the edge of nowhere.
It's right there. Okay. Now, to your point, and let me put up the prayer requests. The last bullet point here, Dale would like to, in the future, and he said this is years down the road, but like where we were staying in Reykjavik, he said we would love to plant a church like in downtown Reykjavik. So it's really on the outskirts. It's easily accessible. Most people have vehicles or public transportation. I think from downtown Reykjavik, it was like 13 minutes over there to the church. And of course, depends on where you were, but it's accessible to people that want to get there. But Dale's vision is to have an Icelandic preaching church kind of in the downtown area there. Good question. What else?
Did you guys stay with anybody, or were you in a hotel?
No, it was like an Airbnb that we stayed in. We wouldn't have been able to stay with the Kellers for sure, but yeah.
During the documentary snippet you showed, I recall someone mentioning something about not wanting to pay the church. Are registered members of the state church required to pay some sort of fee?
That's a great question, and I heard that, and I never looked into it, so I'm not sure what that is, but maybe they're expected to give something. I don't know. Yeah. Yes?
I didn't see any old people in your interviews. Is there an older population?
Yes, there is, and they are I think the purpose of the documentary was to see where the current generation was with their faith, and where kind of the church could go with this next generation in the future. So I think he was targeting young people, probably at the university or something like that. So yeah, yes, I mean, the older people are much more steeped. You see the young people are, not only are they godless and atheistic, but they also are not as attached to the Icelandic culture or the Lutheran church, whereas older people are much more traditional, they're much more staunch. In fact, there's a movement in Iceland to work to try to retain the Icelandic language, because obviously English is everywhere, and so there's concerns there that this language, obviously it's the only place in the world where it's spoken, and so some of the older generation are worried that they're gonna lose it.
I know you said that you're the first supporting church to visit them. Are they being supported well by their sending church? Have they visited them?
Dale didn't say that they did. I think they've had a visit from both parents. I think Dale's parents have come over there, and Linnea's parents have come over there, but he never said that their sending church has come over. Yeah, he didn't. I don't think so.
Two quick questions. With the language you mentioned, are the younger people, did Dale say that they're starting to speak more English? Is that kind of where they're transiting, because it is universal language?
Yeah, it's universal language. It's international. Interestingly, yeah, I mean, Gunnar, he's Icelandic, but even all of the commentaries and all of the Christian literature that we have accessible, there's not very much of it in Icelandic. So he really prefers to even preach and teach, and of course he studies from these English commentaries and things like that. What was your other question?
Real quick, what was the cost to fly there? I mean, what?
That wasn't bad. Yeah, it's become a tourist location. Dale was telling us that Iceland was like, nobody cared about Iceland, and there was a volcano that erupted. I think it was in the 90s, some big volcano eruption that happened there. And he said literally all of a sudden there was world attention on Iceland, and that literally catapulted their economy, and suddenly tourists were flooding into Iceland. And so now every year it exponentially increases the amount of tourist activity. So yeah, it was like $500 for a ticket, for a round trip ticket.
For supporting churches, it's not.
Oh yeah.
You guys spent $1,500 to get
right.
there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's reasonable. A ticket's is not that much. Anybody else? Maybe one more question? Yes.
So in light of the fact that no one else has visited them in almost a year and a half, are we as a church planning to send someone at any kind of frequency?
Well, I think that even when we had Luke and Courtney's commissioning service, I think Andrew and I are committed to holding the ropes well for the missionaries we support. Perhaps instead of supporting this many missionaries and never visiting them, we want to have missionaries that we know, have relationships, support, go visit, encourage, those kind of things. So I think, I don't know if we would go to Iceland every year, but certainly I think Andrew and I's heart would be to regularly, whatever that means, have an in-person visit. They were really thankful. I'm telling you, they were very, very thankful for us to come. I mean, and you can imagine too. Luke and Courtney were there, they're going to Costa Rica, so they're missionaries, and I mean, it was immediate connection. There was lots of war story trading and just encouraging one another, and they were very inquisitive, to Luke and Courtney. They were asking them lots of questions. So super encouraging trip. Very thankful that I went, and pray that I can't overstate to you the true sense of how I was able to learn about Dale and Linnea's missions situation, if you want to call it, without actually going there. I couldn't have done that, and it really has moved me a great deal to see the incredible benefit of going to see folks, because you just can't get a sense of what they're in the middle of and the ministry there. If you're not there, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and this just puts it right there, and so much easier to pray and encourage. I'm going to go ahead and finish up, and I'm going to pray for these things as I close. Father, pray for the people of Iceland and the Kellers. Lord, what great challenges that we see there.